Hey everyone, Dave here with another Blu-ray review and unboxing video. This one we're going to be doing a little bit different to normal, simply because we have a whole bunch of titles to take a look at here. We are of course going to be taking a look at the brand new James Cameron 4K remasters that have just come out on the market. Of course, most notably, Aliens, The Abyss, and True Lies. These are some very highly anticipated titles, not only on 4K, but on the Blu-ray format as well. We're also going to take a brief look at a number of titles that were released later last year. So I think just before Christmas, there is Titanic and the two Avatar Collector's Editions. So it's a bit of a James Cameron bundle right here. We're going to take a look at all of these. I know there have been, there's been a lot said about these new remasters. A lot of people aren't happy with how Cameron has been remastering his films. I should say at the top, all of these have been overseen by James Cameron, and in many cases, the reason why it's taken so long for some of these titles to hit Blu-ray is because Cameron has been busy with other titles, and he wanted to give, his attention to properly oversee these. A lot of people are kind of a little bit disappointed with how these have come out. A number of other people, or a lot of other people, are happy with them. I'm kind of in the middle ground here. We're going to go over all of this in this video. I'm going to do my normal thing where I show you clips of that I've taken directly from these discs here, so you can get a good idea of what they actually look like instead of me just sitting here rambling about it. And I'm also going to be doing some little unboxings as well. I will say at the top of this, thanks so much to Disney for sending over all of these amazing titles right here. I appreciate that as always. And to Paramount, who have graciously sent over a copy of Titanic. This is the first thing Paramount has ever sent to me from over in the States. And, I said I'm going to be doing a video on all of the James Cameron remasters when they all drop in. Could you please send me a copy of Titanic as well, so I can kind of do all of them? This one is actually distributed by 20th Century Pictures over in the UK, because Fox had distribution rights in the UK and Australia, whereas Paramount had distribution rights in America. So they're all sort of part of this same restoration program that all of these movies have gone under. And I felt like it would be a little bit, it's a little bit delayed in taking a look at this, a few months, but this video will be incomplete without touching on Titanic as well. So without further ado, there's a lot to have a look. Let's get into this. So firstly, we're going to take a look at the ones that have just come out. Of course, True Lies, The Abyss, and Aliens. Now, particularly True Lies and The Abyss have been absent on Blu-ray. These have been very hard to get, even on DVD for a very long time. These have just been off the market. I believe they've been like HD streaming versions, which aren't really proper remasters. True Lies has been on Disney Plus for some time, but now we're finally getting these not only on 4K, but on Blu-ray. These are all, as I said, part of the same restoration process, and we're talking about Titanic as well, underwent this. And essentially, there are some mixed results. Overall, Cameron has applied this, I guess it's this new way of remastering these older movies to make them look more contemporary. Cameron has always been at the forefront of technology. He has always pushed boundaries in film technologies and all that kind of stuff. And of course, when we look at the Avatar movies, these are the pinnacle of film visual effects at the moment and digital filmmaking. And Cameron, in this day and age, is very much a digital filmmaker, and he has gone into this restoration process with that kind of in mind. I believe he wants his movies to look as contemporary, as cutting edge, as technologically advanced as possible. And what this has resulted in is the use of some, I guess, what are digital AI restoration tools. There's noise removal, so a lot of that inherent grain from like these films were filmed digitally. A lot of the inherent grain from the original, the original, I guess, film prints of this movie have been scrubbed away digitally. Not as bad as we've seen in the past. There's been some really bad digital noise removal, maybe I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. The technology has come a long way in that these films don't really look waxy or or any of that they kind of used to look all flat or smudged or anything like that. It's actually a technology that has come quite a long way. And these movies, for the most part, look very crisp. They look very clear. The restoration job on these is terrific. I gotta say that up front. They all look gorgeous, and they all look like they were filmed last year. These all look like modern, contemporary movies that have just been made and shot digitally. And that is what Cameron is going for here. But as a result, we lose that inherent film grain of these. I also feel like there's been some sort of digital AI smoothing applied to all of these movies. There has been some sort of, I guess, motion smoothing. It feels like even like a faux high frame rate, because we know that Cameron shot Avatar: The Way of Water in a high frame rate, and actually went back to the original Avatar and did like a digital frame rate thing where he pushed the frame rate up on that for this remaster that's featured on these discs here. So, look, I think what I have to say about all of these is pretty much the same, but when we go into them each, I think there's maybe pros and cons of each disc that we're looking at here. Firstly, we'll start with The Abyss. This is a gorgeously vibrant movie. It absolutely explodes on 4K. The colors are gorgeous and the image is really beautiful. But I think because of the nature of the movie being, again, really vibrant and really sort of explosive and really visually pleasing, I think out of the three movies that have just found their release, this one is probably the most unnatural looking of the lot. I think one of the downfalls of the 4K format is that it's so crisp and so clear that a lot of CGI work, even contemporary CGI work, visual effects work, looks fake because of that upper resolution. And a lot of these older movies, when you have VFX that were done 20, 30 years ago, they look even more fake the higher the resolution goes. This movie just has a kind of an unnatural feel in that nothing really quite feels real. It doesn't really feel quite tangible. There are even some moments where maybe it does look a little smudgy. You see it in people's teeth. It almost looks like a kind of an AI sort of thing where maybe it hasn't cleaned up the job properly, or it's a really hard thing to pin down, but I felt like this felt really unnatural. Film grain is almost nowhere to be seen in the Abyss release. It's very, very smooth. It's very, very clear, and it just doesn't feel filmic. It feels like a digitally shot movie. But again, you know, kind of catch-22 is that it does look gorgeous. The cleanup job is beautiful. So we're going to have people who are excited on one hand that this movie looks so crisp and so clean, but then we're also going to have the people who are not quite happy with the digital AI work that has gone into making it look that way, and in some respects, again, kind of unnatural. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Abyss disc right there. Next up is True Lies. This one's interesting because this one isn't as flashy or as showy as The Abyss, or even kind of to an extent Aliens. True Lies is a really down and dirty, gritty, grungy action comedy thriller. And these movies from the 90s, they always looked so grungy. They always looked so filmic. You know, they were filmed, they almost looked like guerrilla filmmaking, in which it was just like a really down and dirty, gritty kind of film. When you start taking away stuff like film grain from a movie like True Lies, it kind of takes away from that experience that you have with that the movies. It kind of takes away from the grittiness of it. It takes away from the atmosphere that you get from the film. A little bit of that gets taken away. Again, the transfer on this one is really nice, but the lack of that film grain really kind of takes away from the atmosphere of this film. It just feels like a contemporary, digitally shot action film. And again, to some people that might be okay, and to others, it takes a little something away from the movie that you've maybe grown up watching. I also feel because the movie is more, I guess, it is an over-the-top film, but it's a bit more down-to-earth than something like The Abyss, where they go under the sea to find aliens and stuff, or Aliens, where they go into space to find aliens and stuff. It's a more down-to-earth, grounded kind of movie, and the digital AI kind of work on this makes it feel... It takes away from a little bit of that reality of it. It makes it feel like maybe a little bit heightened. And in some moments, it just doesn't feel right at all. It just feels too inauthentic. It just feels too manufactured. It's kind of hard to put into words. You're seeing the visuals flash before you anyway. It just kind of doesn't look quite right to my eyes. And the next one up is Aliens. Now, I think this one fares the best out of them all. This is kind of a darker, grittier movie as well. It's sort of in that same vein of The Abyss, where it's an over-the-top kind of explosive film. But I feel it's grungier, it's darker, it is dirtier than The Abyss. And I have a feeling Cameron has probably gone into that, feeling that that is a big part of the visual atmosphere of this film, is that it needs to feel that way. It needs to feel kind of otherworldly or, a little bit tangible. So I think this one actually fares best out of these three when it comes to film grain. I feel like the management of grain isn't as heavy-handed in this film. There are noticeable moments where it does feel very filmic. There is some really nice grain. Maybe not as much as there should be, but I feel like the balance has been kind of struck quite nicely in this. And again, the unreality of that kind of AI digital cleanup is present here, but it's not as invasive as, say, these other two films. I feel like Aliens is the movie that has fared the best out of those three. But then we'll take a look at Titanic, and I think overall this is probably the best looking film of the lot. We have seen Cameron return to Titanic a number of times over the last 30 odd years. And I think we're kind of used to seeing this one look a little cleaner. Cameron cleaned it up a number of years ago when they did the 3D issue of this, and he did the HD issue. I feel like a lot of the groundwork for this was probably done back then. But I feel like this one pulls up looking the best. I feel like there's little to none of this kind of AI interference that we've got going, the digital smoothing, the digital noise reduction. It doesn't seem as heavy-handed here. This movie kind of looks the more natural out of the bunch of these films right here. It feels like it has a lot of its grain still intact in the moments where it needs to be there, but it also does feel very clean. It feels crisp. I thought this looked really great in 4K, in HDR. It's just a stunning looking movie, and of course there was a lot of visual effects work with this, with the ship and stuff, and that all pulls up looking really quite nice as well. And perhaps the decision to make this look a little bit more natural was to cover up maybe some of the more dated effects that are in the film. I think the movie still holds up incredibly well, but there is some stuff in there that might just be like a touch dated. I think this pulls up looking really quite nice. And again, out of the four of these, I think Titanic is probably the most authentic looking to source, closely followed by Aliens, and then you've got Abyss and True Lies kind of lagging behind. Again, these are all really superficial things, and I think if people out there are just grabbing these movies to look great and to show off on their 4K TV and pump the saturation and all that kind of stuff up, I think the general consumer is gonna love these. I think people are gonna think that these are like the great, sort of, how can you make a movie look so contemporary? One of these old, like 30, 40-year-old movies. How have you made this look so contemporary and so amazing? I think a lot of the general buying, viewing public are gonna just have an absolute ball with these. But when you talk about people like myself, and I guess a lot of people out there watching who are more into the filmic side of things, real cinephiles, and love your film grains and love things to look authentic, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a kickback, a backlash there. I find myself in between the two camps. I would like these movies to look a little bit more cinematic than they do, a little bit more filmic than they do, but also I can really appreciate the job that has gone into making these look as incredible as they do. I'm not going to go over them all in depth, but all of these are pretty much as ultimate sets as they can be. They are loaded with bonus features. Most of them have got some new stuff. There's a really great new little piece on Titanic. I think it's like maybe a 30-40 minute documentary, just kind of like a look back on Titanic. All the great bonus features, most of the great bonus features from the previous Blu-ray release are on here as well. There's maybe one or two things missing on there. As for like The Abyss and True Lies and Aliens, As far as I'm aware, pretty much all the legacy bonus features from the DVDs and the old Blu-rays and stuff are here. You've got the feature-length documentaries in the case of Aliens, like a 3-hour-long documentary on the making of the film. The Abyss has got a really expansive behind the scenes of the movie as well. True Lies is mostly new stuff. There's a new documentary on there, which is a look back at True Lies with new interviews with cast and crew and Cameron and Schwarzenegger and all of that, and Jamie Lee Curtis. And there's a new documentary. The Legacy of the Abyss is new. Maybe Aliens is the only one that doesn't have anything like sort of new, substantially new. But yeah, as far as legacy stuff goes, as far as I'm aware, it's all on here, or pretty much all on here as well. So these are really nice little sets. If you don't own these on Blu-ray, or you do own them on Blu-ray, they are worth picking up if you're fans of the movie. But just be aware of that kind of clean-up job. A lot of people aren't going to be huge fans of that. Next up, what I do want to spotlight are these two new special edition sets for the Avatar movies. Now, a lot of people were naturally a bit disappointed by these because, of course, Disney issued both films on kind of more... Well, these are the ultimate collector's editions. The odd thing is, right, these are the ultimate collector's editions, the 3-disc sets they put out kind of middle last year. And then you've got what is just kind of marketed as just a normal collector's edition, which is the more ultimate versions of the lot. But yeah, Disney issued these 3-disc editions of the first of the 2 Avatar movies earlier last year, and then just before Christmas they announced, or they released, these 2 expansive 4-disc each box sets. Now, there is quite a substantial difference here. We have got both, I think both movies are presented in Dolby Vision, or at least The Way of Water is presented in Dolby Vision. That's a rarity for Disney, 4K. I don't think they've ever released a Dolby Vision on 4K Disney. James Cameron was obviously very adamant about that. Previous releases of those weren't presented in Dolby Vision. And also, notably, the first Avatar movie presents all 3 cuts of the film, which is the theatrical version, the special edition version, and the collector's extended cut, whereas the original issue of that one from earlier last year only had the theatrical cut of the movie, and people were a bit disappointed even then. Why haven't you released all the cuts? They're holding it off for this, which is a bit annoying for those who have to go in and double dip. Additionally, you have got a 4th bonus disc of bonus features on here. There are even, like these sets had bonus features. Particularly speaking of the first Avatar movie, it had brand new exclusive bonus features, look backs on that movie, stuff like that. The new set has even more new stuff. Same with Way of Water. Very comprehensive behind the scenes documentary on there. There's even more stuff on the new release. So they've absolutely loaded these. Again, that 4th disc, that extra disc on both sets has just extra bonus features. And in the case of the original Avatar movie, it's mostly, there's a few new things, but it's mostly legacy features from the old Blu-ray discs that weren't ported over to the initial 4K release. So pretty much everything is collected in this set now. And Way of Water, it is a 4th disc of just an hour's worth of additional bonus features on top of what you got on that original release. I'd highly recommend these. These are 2 spectacular box sets. The movies look incredible. Again, these look very contemporary, but that's the idea behind these. These are supposed to be technologically advanced movies. I even think with the first Avatar, Cameron did a high frame rate conversion thing with this that looks great. It pulls up looking fantastic, and I had no problem with that, but I think the movie's so technologically advanced and contemporary. To begin with, you don't notice it as much here as you would on movies that are 30, 40 years old. But yeah, these are 2 spectacular box sets, and I cannot recommend these high enough. And even if you do have the original sets, maybe sell them off or keep them both. They're nice. It's nice to have all of them in the collection, I think. But yeah, if you want the whole kit and caboodle, you want the whole package when it comes to Avatar, you've got to pick these 2 sets up because they are fantastic. The movies look great in Dolby Vision. They've got the Dolby Atmos, which sounds really, really great. Leagues above most Dolby Atmos soundtracks from Disney films because, of course, this is all completely overseen by Cameron. Disney have basically handed him the keys to the kingdom and told him, do your thing and we'll put it out. So, look, that kind of brings an end to this video. It's been a little bit longer than normal. There's been a lot to touch on here, but these are all available right now. Thank you again to my good pals over at Disney for sending over Aliens, True Lies, The Abyss, and the 2 Avatar sets as well from earlier last year. And thank you to the incredible team over at Paramount for sending over Titanic. And thanks everybody out there for watching. I want to know, have you got your hands on these sets? If you have, I want to know what your thoughts are on the new conversions. If you haven't got your hands on the sets, I want to know, what are you thinking? Are you looking forward to grabbing these? Are you perhaps not going to grab them after what you've heard? Or if what you've heard is not too concerning to you, are you going to grab them? Whatever, I want to know all your thoughts. As always, weigh in with those down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.